Hello, Colin Manning here again. In this video, we're going to continue our look at cybercrime. And it's important to remember that there are three different kinds of cybercrime. There are computer-assisted crimes. These are what we call traditional crimes in which a computer is involved. There are computer integrity crimes. These are crimes against computers. And then there are computer content crimes. And computer content crimes refer to what the bits and bytes on a computer system might be representing. They're crimes to do with what's stored on a computer. In this video, we're going to focus on computer-assisted crimes. So these are, in essence, traditional, old-fashioned crimes, the kinds of crimes that have been around for a long time. And so in computer-assisted crimes, someone might be trying to acquire money or goods or services dishonestly. Someone might be stealing credentials in order to access money. You can have, phishing scams, romance scams, any kind of crime that is a crime that was around, say, 100 years ago, that is now being carried out with the assistance of a computer would fit into this category. So the crime, for example, of trying to hire a hitman to kill your boyfriend is something that would fit into this category. And whether you hire the hitman in a bar or whether you hire a hitman online, it's in essence the same crime. And that's one of the challenges of cybercrime legislation, is trying to figure out if the existing legislation and the existing definition of the crime fully captures the essence of the crime in the new era, in the time when we have computers to assist with that. Let's look, for example, at the kind of crime that someone conducts when they have stolen credit cards. So if you've stolen credit card credentials, how do you convert that into cash? How do you make money from stealing credit card details? Well, one typical scam involves recruiting mules in countries that are not suspicious. So if, for example, a credit card transaction comes in and it's asking for products to be shipped to Russia or for products to be shipped to Ghana, for example, that might raise a flag. Whereas the same transaction in a similar situation where everything is the same except the product is being shipped to, say, Germany, might not be suspicious. So the criminal posts an ad, something like earn money from home addressing packages. And this recruits mules to receive packages and then ship them on. So the scammer would buy some low value products, ship them to the mule's home address. The mule then would follow the instructions that were given to repackage the product, send it off to, say, Russia, and the mule then would be refunded for the postage, the cost of the postage, and then would also earn some money. So the mule is happy that he's going to get reimbursed for the postage and make the few bob that he was promised. And the criminal is happy that the mule can be relied upon to ship the products onwards. So for the next stage of the process, then the criminal ups the ante and starts shipping high value items. And these are bought with stolen credentials. They might be stolen credit card credentials, or maybe, someone's eBay account has been compromised or someone's PayPal account. And these high value items are shipped to the mules. And again, the online vendors aren't suspicious. There's nothing unusual about this. So this might be, Apple watches or cameras, things that are bought online but cost some money. And the mule then ships these packages onwards. So eventually, the fraud is discovered. So someone has bought, a camera and it was with a fake credit card. The police arrive at the mule's home, and you know, the mule doesn't really know anything about this apart from, oh, I got this job shipping packages on. And so this could be some little old lady in Hanover, and the goods are gone, so they can't be seized. The identity of the scammer even may be difficult to ascertain. But certainly the goods and the fraudster are both beyond reach, and all of these packages are sitting somewhere in a warehouse in Germany, or even sometimes you have companies that can ship things on. That's a legitimate business, where someone sends things to a particular address and then they get shipped on to another address. That's a perfectly legitimate business to be in, but these can be used as well as sort of shipping mules. Finally, then, the scammer has to convert all these Apple Watches or whatever they may be back into cash. So typically these then are sold on the street, or they're sold online. They send them back onto the internet, and this time they sell the goods and convert them to cash. So that's one way credit card details or other credentials can be exploited for profit. There's an interesting variation on this, which is a three-way scam. And so in this situation, the scammer advertises products for sale. So let's say it's a box of Nespresso capsules, unwanted gift, whatever. And this could be done, say, on eBay or some other kind of peer-to-peer selling website. And the potential customer looks up the fraudster, and like the fraudster has very good reviews. People have purchased from this person before and got the goods they ordered, and they were in good nick, and they weren't fake, and the price was good and everything. So that's fine. So the customer then places an order with the scammer. Now, the scammer doesn't actually have any of these goods. What the scammer does then is pays for the goods with the stolen credit card credentials. And so the fraudster fulfills the customer's order with the manufacturer, the shipper, and the vendor then ships these goods to the customer. Often you might have a site like eBay where the purchaser pays eBay or gives eBay, the authorization to complete the purchase, and then only when the purchaser confirms that the goods have been received does eBay release the money. That's kind of what's called escrow. That happens sometimes. So, the consumer confirms that they got the goods. They look great, fabulous, great price, happy out, goes on, gives the vendor 5 stars, customer is happy out. No. So then the fraudster will get paid. And so the fraudster has the money. And so this can go on and on and on for quite some time. And the fraudster sells lots of goods to happy customers. So the customers are happy, the fraudster gets plenty of good reviews. And then the fraud can even carry on because once there's a new card to a new address, there's nothing suspicious. So unlike, say, where a mule is being used and the goods are all going to a particular address, so if a vendor, got 200 orders to send stuff to the same address, even if they had different credit cards, that would look suspicious. But these are genuine purchasers. They might be people who have very good ratings on eBay. They may have been customers for years, and there's nothing suspicious about that. And then with a new card, new address, every time it can be hard to detect that fraud. Eventually, the fraudster will, get caught out. They can just go away and set up a new eBay account, and off they go again. Now, of course, the important thing about a crime such as this is that it's not a new crime, really. Securing goods fraudulently is a thing that has been around for a long time. And so this can be captured by existing fraud legislation. Existing criminal law can capture this scenario. But of course, the capacity to actually prosecute may be more difficult than before, because unlike someone walking into a vendor and handing over a forged check, for example, the fraudster doesn't take possession of the goods, and the fraudster may be in a different country and just buying stuff online with stolen credit card credentials. So, although the crime can be difficult to prosecute as a result of the involvement of the internet, the crime per se is an old crime. People have been doing this kind of thing, this kind of fraud for a long time. It just may be more difficult to prosecute, and also the scale is different. If you have 1,000 stolen credit card details, well, you can, execute this scam over and over and over again. It can be automated even, and you can have quite small amounts of fraud adding up to an awful lot of money. One of the, I was going to say one of the oldest, but it's perhaps not that old, but one form of crime, one kind of fraud, is a Ponzi scheme. So, in a Ponzi scheme, investors are lured in with the promise of high returns. So, you might be promised, 10% or 20% in just a few months. And although you might have your doubts, when you ask around, you find out that actually, people who did invest did get their money and did get the high returns they were promised. You have a buddy down the road who 6 months ago invested, 10,000 and he got everything he was promised. So whatever this person is doing, however they figured out how to make money, people are getting their money back. So that's fine. And so because the other investors, the early investors were paid, new investors come in. But actually, all that's happening in a Ponzi scheme is that the early investors are being paid back with the money of the later investors. So you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and you can keep the illusion that everything is going fine for a very long time. Now, eventually, the entire scheme collapses, and those people who joined later typically never see their money. A variation of a Ponzi scheme is a pyramid scheme. And in a pyramid scheme, existing participants make their money from new participants. So in a pyramid scheme, you have to recruit people in order for you to make your money. So in a pyramid scheme, the person higher up gets money from the people below. And the person higher up may have paid someone else in the past to join the scheme, but now they're getting their money back and multiples of it by recruiting new people into the scheme. And again, people who sign up to this early do in fact make a lot of money. And so your buddy down the road signed up to this scheme and he invested €1,000, and sure enough, in a couple of weeks he ended up with €4,000. So like, this is a great idea. So then you decide you want in too. But the only way for you to make money is to recruit new people in. And it's the maths of this that really catches people out in the end, because it's exponential. So imagine if you had to recruit your 10 new participants, say, in a week, even if it was a month. Let's say you had to do it in a week. I mean, that's fine. You get 10 people. Um, Eventually, then, 100 people are needed if everyone wants to get their money. The last people in then need to get 10 people each. So then you need 1,000. The last people in, if they're to get 10 people each, you'll need 10,000. And, you might need 100,000. So eventually there just aren't enough people. You just literally you can um, in quite a short number of cycles you can exceed the population of the planet. And I mean, any scheme that requires you to look for investors, outside of Earth is problematic. So the problem with the pyramid scheme again is that some of the early investors might make their money, um, but in time then you just run out of people. Pyramid schemes often target specific groups. So in Ireland many years ago, there was a scheme I think called Women Empowering Women, and it was just for women. Sometimes too, they target specific nationalities or specific ethnic groups. And of course, the feature is that people who invest early seem to do okay. So people think, oh, this could work for me. Um, but in time, you just aren't enough people for everyone to get their money back. Um, and this can take various forms. So no one calls their pyramid scheme a pyramid scheme. But they can be very elaborate. They can have sort of themes, different names and stuff. They can target different groups and whatnot. People know about pyramid schemes and so try to avoid them. Pyramid schemes are also illegal in many jurisdictions. It's a criminal offence to be involved in a pyramid scheme in Ireland. And one of the ways that people get around the criminal prohibition on being involved in pyramid schemes is to get involved in multi-level marketing. So some pyramid schemes are disguised as multi-level marketing programs. So in multi-level marketing, you sell products, but you also are encouraged to recruit sellers of products, and then you supervise them. So you become like their mini wholesaler. And this is an entirely legitimate business model. And there are many businesses that do this. Um, but often, multi-level marketing schemes are actually just pyramid schemes in disguise. And in order to make money, you have to recruit new people into the scheme. So you can have a scheme where you're selling health supplements, for example, or you're selling makeup. But typically, what happens is you have to buy a starter kit, or there might be some training, or you might have to buy into the business. And of course, in any business, in any franchise, even, that's not unusual. So it could be perfectly legit. But I guess the way to differentiate a pyramid scheme from um, a genuine multi level marketing scheme is to figure out how much of someone's income comes from actually selling the products and how much of someone's income comes from the people underneath them in the scheme. So like in a multi-level marketing scheme, if you recruit people into the scheme, when they sell, they'll get commission, but you'll also get some commission on their commission, and the money kind of flows up a bit. And again, that's perfectly legitimate. But if all that's happening is people are running around trying to recruit new people, and no one's actually selling much makeup or selling much vitamins, well, then it's probably actually a pyramid scheme posing as a multi-level marketing scheme. One quite famous one in Ireland some time ago was a thing called Banners Broker, where you were buying banner space on a website. So you were buying advertising space on websites, and then when people advertised on that space, you got some money. So you could imagine you could buy a billboard in a city, and when someone um, places ads there, you can make some money from that. And so this was a posing as a scheme where you could buy advertising space on websites, and then when people clicked on the ads, you'd make some money. Interestingly, The only thing ever being advertised on banner broker websites was banner broker. Like if you called them up and said, "Hi, I'm selling, a new kind of chocolate. Can I rent some advertising space from you?" There was no one to even deal with that. The whole scheme was only about recruiting new people into the scheme. And of course, people who invested early on did get money. And when someone clicked on an ad and signed up to Banner's broker, the person who owned the ad space, got some money. And so the people who invested early on did fine. But eventually, there were simply not enough people in the world to sustain this. Um, and so this is the problem with multi-level marketing. I mean, is it multi-level marketing or is it a pyramid scheme? It really depends. And the question is, how much do you have to pay to join? And how important is it for you to recruit new people? Um, there's some answers then when you figure out that. Romance scams are very common online as well. So a person meets someone online and they develop a relationship, they fall in love, and then one of the participants has a problem, needs an operation, or someone is sick at home and needs medical treatment. Um, the person wants to come visit finally and meet face to face, but they need money for the airfare. Um, that can be a problem. This lady here is the most impersonated woman in the world. Her pictures were stolen, and she's been used to defraud many people of money. So the victim sends money and sends typically it starts with small amounts and builds up and builds up. So all of these kinds of crimes then, they're not really new crimes. You know, romance scams existed before the internet. And this poses the very, very interesting question, you know, why do we call it cybercrime? I mean, if someone robs money from a bank using a computer or someone robs money from a bank at gunpoint, I mean, it's still the same crime of robbing money from a bank. And fraud is not new. Ponzi schemes date back from the 1800s, and the original Ponzi scheme, the eponymous Ponzi scheme, was from the 1920s. Although actually Ponzi had a Ponzi scheme before the one he's famous for. Um, Bernie Madoff in the 2000s ran a Ponzi scheme that got all the way up to $64 billion. Early investors made their money back, told everyone, this guy's great, you give him your money, he'll make you more money. And this was sustained for some time, up to $64 billion. That's a lot. So, that's the question. Are old crimes committing computers a new kind of crime? The crime is the same crime, but typically the scale and geographical scope can be very large. So you can automate a lot of this process. In a romance scam, the scammer could have 40 men on the go at a time. Even if it's $100 here, $100 there, times 40, that builds up. And then prosecution can also be more difficult if people are abroad. There are two approaches then to thinking about cybercrime. You can legislate for cybercrime by considering traditional crimes that involve a computer to be just the same crime, or you can legislate specifically for computer crimes. Traditionally in Ireland, we've taken the former approach, but more recently, we've adopted cybercrime specific legislation. So, for example, we have the Criminal Justice Theft and Fraud Offences Act from 2001. And this says it's an offence to make gain or cause loss by deception. So a person who dishonestly, with the intention of making gain for himself or another, or of causing loss to another, by any deception induces another to refrain or doing an act is guilty of an offence. Okay? And so this fraud legislation can be applied to cybercrime. It can, involve internet scams. It can involve purchase of goods with stolen credentials. It can be click fraud, ransomware. Most types of fraud conducted on computer systems or conducted using computer systems can fit the definition of this crime. Um, but you can see there that it's making gain or causing a loss by deception. There must be an intent to make a gain or cause loss. So this wouldn't capture a scenario where someone hacks into a computer system, but not for gain or not for causing a loss. So that can pose a problem. And we know that is a type of cybercrime. The Consumer Protection Act, for example, um, criminalizes the pyramid scheme. So a person shall not establish, operate, or promote a pyramid promotional scheme, knowingly participate in such a scheme, or induce or attempt to induce another person to participate in such a scheme. And if you do, it's a criminal offense. So an online pyramid scheme will meet the definition of this crime too. So although the existing legislation might adequately capture the essence of the crime, it might be difficult to prosecute. And that's because there's underreporting. We've seen that before. So to sum up then, we have three kinds of cybercrime. Computer-assisted crimes. Those are regular, old-fashioned crimes in which a computer is involved. There's computer integrity crimes, and these are crimes that are against computer systems, and then there are content crimes. Now, computer-assisted crimes are typically captured by traditional legislation describing the traditional crime, for want of a better word. But the online nature of the crime can make detection and prosecution more difficult. But in terms of the crime that a person is charged with, fraud is fraud. Hiring a hitman is hiring a hitman. Blackmail is blackmail. The fact that a computer is involved doesn't really alter the criminal offense, doesn't alter the nature of the crime per se. But of course, the crime can be automated, can have a broad geographic scope, and can target many, many victims.